So, what I've realized with the late night wars, that there's a difference between the late night wars and eras of late night television. First era began the first era of late night television is when the Tonight Show began. When it was created in 1954. So it kind of spans. The beginning era was 1954 to 1962. This was the before Johnny Carson era. And then 1962 to 2015 was the old late night era, which means Johnny Carson and David Letterman were old late night television hosts. Basically it means that they began hosting before 2000. So that's what they're considered. And then the current era that we're in, 2015 to 2025. Currently it's going for 10 long years. It's called the new late night television era. Or the downfall era, if you will. Anyway, let's get on to the David Letterman era. So, CBS had previously attempted late night talk shows with the Merv Griffin Show, 1969 to 1972, and the Pat Sajak Show, 1989 and 1990. But Griffin clashed with network censors and moved to Cinction, while Sajak was unable to compete with NBC's The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson and was canceled due to poor ratings. For more than 20 years preceding Late Show, CBS's late night fare consisted of movies, reruns, and specialty programming packaged under the name CBS Late Night and broadcast to middling ratings. When David Letterman became available following a conflict with NBC, that conflict is where NBC decided Jay Leno over David Letterman to host The Tonight Show. CBS was eager to lure him in and offer him a 30-year, $14 million per year contract, doubling his late night salary. According to their agreement, the show would spend a month in Hollywood at least once a year. CBS purchased the Ed Sullivan Theater for $4 million, spending several million to renovate it. The renovation was supervised by architect James Polshik. Yeah. CBS total costs for acquiring the show, including renovations, negotiation rights paid to NBC, signing Letterman, announcer Bill Wendell, Schaffer, the writers, and the band was over $140 million. A significant issue regarding Letterman's move to CBS was the ownership of long-running comedy bits used on late night, as well as the name of the CBS show itself. NBC claimed that much of what he did on late night was intellectual property of the network, or IP of the network. Letterman and his attorneys courted that some segments, Stupid Pet Tricks, for example, predated late night and he had first aired on the David Letterman Show, which was owned by Letterman's production company. Rather than NBC and others, such as the top 10 list and viewers' mail were not eligible for intellectual property protection or IP protection, and belonged neither to Letterman nor NBC. Ultimately, a compromise was reached in key areas. The viewer mail segment would be called the CBS Mailbag. The actor portraying Larry Bud Melman on late night would use his real name, Calvert DeForest, which is he has one of the weirdest first and last names. Like, why? On the CBS show, and Paul Schaffer's World Most Dangerous Band would become the CBS Orchestra. NBC gave Letterman the choice of at least two options to name his new show: Late Show with David Letterman or Nightly with David Letterman. On this matter, CBS executives stepped in, rejecting Nightly in part because of the portrayal confusion with Nightline on ABC, along with NBC Nightly News. Thus, Late Show with David Letterman quickly became the official name. After Letterman was introduced on Late Show's very first episode, NBC Nightly News anchor Tom Brokaw accompanied him on stage and wished him reasonable. I'm gonna try and do a Tom Brokaw, whatever. I'm gonna try and do a Tom impression. Reasonably well. As part of a pre-agreed act, Brokaw then proceeded to retrieve a pair of cue cards while stating that these last two jokes are the intellectual property of NBC. After he carried them off stage, Letterman responded, "Who would have thought you would ever hear the words intellectual property and NBC in the same sentence. In his opening monologue, Letterman said, "Legally, I can continue to call myself Dave," but joked that he woke up that morning and next to him in bed was the head of a peacock, while the orchestra played the theme from The Godfather. Now, that conversation, it feels made by AI, except the reasonably well. Yeah. So you might need to check that one. In ratings, Letterman Late Night Show dominated Jay Leno's Tonight Show for its first 2 years. Leno pulled ahead on July 10th, 1995, starting with a Hugh Grant interview after Grant's much publicized arrest for picking up a Los Angeles prostitute. Leno also benefited from the lead-in provided by NBC's popular must-see TV prime-time programs of the mid to late 1990s. Likewise, the CBS network was hindered by a weak prime-time lineup, along with several large and major market network affiliation switches in late 1994 relating to Fox's acquisition of CBS's National Football League rights, or NFL rights, stunning the Late Show just as it was beginning to gain traction. Announcer Bill Wendell retired in 1995, with Alan Coulter taking his place. At times, Late Show even came in third in its time slot, behind Nightline, most recently in November 2008, once prompting Letterman to arrange for a Manhattan billboard proudly declaring himself and his show to be number 3 in late night, appealing an older. Nearby billboards which promoted Leno and The Tonight Show as number 1. Letterman attempted to respond by making his show more political, upping the approach taken by The Daily Show under Jon Stewart. He acknowledged in 2024 that he believed that The Late Show had lost grounds to Tonight because Leno was an everyman whose show was more likable than the show I was doing. That's his words, David Letterman's. And that Letterman had made, David Letterman's words again, certain elemental mistakes that handicapped the Late Show's performance. On June 1st, Conan O'Brien, who had succeeded Letterman as host of the Late Night in 1993, feel like that's wrong, took over as host of the Tonight Show, an event Letterman referred in his own show's top 10 lists on that night, and Letterman's feud with Leno temporarily ceased in 2008. Letterman told Rolling Stone that he would welcome Leno on his show once Leno's tenure ended. So, right now, here's the Late Night Wars update. You got David Letterman on one side. You got Jimmy Kimmel, who isn't as popular as he is now, because of that whole thing, which we might need to talk about later on. Got Howard Stern, who I think was at Sirius XM at the time, like he is now. And let's continue. Where was I? Oh, yeah. Letterman set on competing with O'Brien. I still find it hard to believe that Jay wouldn't be there. The interview was held prior to Leno announcing his return to NBC for the Jay Leno show. I don't think I really talked about the Jay Leno show when it was happening. In my video about the Jay Leno versus Conan O'Brien fight, that. 2 minutes of this are just dedicated to like an introduction. Anyway, in the second week after Letterman and O'Brien began their opposing broadcasts, viewer ratings for Tonight began to slip, and Late Show was poised to beat Tonight for the first time in over 10 years. A fact pointed out by Letterman's guest on air, Howard Stern and Julia Roberts. Letterman quickly tried to change the subject in the interviews and tried to avert a new rivalry. In fact, the June 9th, 2009 episode of Late Night featuring Roberts rated better than Tonight Show with a 3.4 household rating nationally to O'Brien's 2.9. A Letterman-Leno feud was revived in the wake of the 2010 Tonight Show conflict. If you don't know what that is, go check out my video called The Late Night Wars, Jay Leno versus Conan O'Brien, which saw Letterman side with O'Brien. Despite the rivalry, Leno appeared in a Late Show promo with Letterman and Oprah Winfrey, which aired on CBS during Super Bowl XLIV. It was Leno and Letterman's first joint appearance since Leno took over the Tonight Show in 1992. The feud between the hosts ended for good on February 6th, 2014, with Leno's second and final retirement, and Late Night Show host Jimmy Fallon would succeed Conan O'Brien in 2009. I think it's supposed to say who succeeded Jay Leno in 2014. Becoming the current host of the Tonight Show on February 2nd, with its sequence return to New York for the first time since 1972. Now we're in 2012. On April 3rd, 2012, CBS reached an agreement with Worldwide Pants and CBS Television Studios to continue the show, though through 2014, the parties reached an agreement in October 2013 to extend the show an additional year, continuing the series until 2015, including his 11 years on NBC. Letterman is the longest tenured late-night talk show host, having surpassed Johnny Carson. On April 10th, 2014, 1 week after Letterman announced that he would retire as host of The Late Show in 2015, CBS announced that his successor as a host of the program would be Stephen Colbert. This doesn't have an update of 2025, but I think everyone knows this by this point. But I'm gonna continue and then say it. Then host of competing late night series, the Colbert Report on Comedy Central. Letterman's last Late Show aired May 20th, 2015, and February 2022. David Letterman's official YouTube channel opened and contains clips from Letterman's late show and his previous morning and late night shows on CBS. Stephen Colbert in the late 2025 got canceled by CBS, but it was probably the doing of Donald Trump and FCC Chairman Brendan Carr. Thank you for watching this video. Please like and subscribe if you like this, and please continue watching for the current era, the new late night era, or the downfall era.